Hi everyone, and welcome to a quick look at the latest ProBuilder beta versions. This is pretty much beta 4, almost a release candidate. Not quite ready to call it that yet, but we now have the fancy new GUI on the side here with a couple extra options and a quite a bit less options as well. So at the very top, there's the mode indicator, and this will tell you whether you are in the just the regular selection mode or the face editing mode, vertex editing, or texture or UV editing. Texture and UV are the same, of course. So if I create a new object, just hit Control K on your keyboard. That hasn't changed. And now we have moved the keyboard shortcuts for editing modes thanks to a lot of requests on the forums and such, which made sense. Should have thought this before. WSAD and such don't work too well. So now it's G, H, and J. So if you hit G, it'll go into the face edit mode or geometry editing mode in general. And then the H key will toggle between vertex and face. So in the face mode, again, I can select and edit any of the faces, and in Vertex I can click on a face to select all the verts, or I can drag, select, and grab individual. You can hold Shift and grab more if you like to as well. Oh, there's something interesting. Well, like I said, it's a beta. So anyway, there's that. Also, if you hit S, oops, sorry, it used to be S. I'm still in the old habits. If you hit J, it'll move into the texture editing mode, which you can then see a nice little brick icon up there. So in the texture edit mode, nothing has changed in this area here, but again, this is just where you would edit the textures themselves. You'll also notice the rotation is in now, which is really, really handy for moving textures around and getting them to line up just right. We'll also be adding in the scale. That should be coming very soon. So exiting that mode. Below that, let's delete this extra object. There is the shape creation tool. So if you click on that, it'll bring up the shape tool panel, and you can choose any one of the options in here. Probably the one that I'm most excited about is the plane. So in this you can choose the normal axis, you can choose width, height, cuts width, and cuts height. I'll set this to 4 so it matches the grid a little better. And just click on Build Plane. And this will be the same for any of these other options which you can check out. Let's build that plane and close that. Now if I enter edit mode, I can edit this just like any other ProBuilder object and do lots of fun things with it. So this is a really, really cool addition to ProBuilder. Hopefully everybody enjoys that. Some others that we've added, there's the, let's see, the stairs have some extra options to them. So you can build a standard stair shape with the same options as before here, but now you can also do turn off the everything except the platforms and hit build. Now you have just the platforms. This is handy a lot of times. I find myself anyway building these stairways and just no drawing all the back faces anyway, so here it's just set up in this way. And again, you can edit these just like any other ProBuilder object, no different. It's really the beauty of ProBuilder 2.0 is that it's all just shapes, nothing to do with cubes and separate planes and all that complicated silliness that the old version was. So moving on, we have the merge button. So this you can simply select two different objects, click on merge, and you can save the originals or delete the originals, and this is something that was in beta 2 and 3 I believe as well. So it just either saves or deletes the originals and makes these into one single object, which is handy for draw calls, if you're making a complex collision mesh, all sorts of different things for that. I'll cancel out of that, or it looks like I merged them. So anyway, again, beta. So let's say I didn't want to merge these in the editor, I just wanted them to be perfectly optimized anyway. Well, now we have the auto collapse groups. So let's say I create a couple cubes, and perhaps I built these up to be very, very, very special. They took a lot of work to make exactly like this, and I don't want to lose the ability to edit these though. So I can select the two of these and just click Make Auto Collapse Group, this one up here. And now I can still edit them just like a regular object. They're two separate objects. However, as soon as the game enters, or as you enter the game, they're merged down to a single object. And here we've got a little bit of an issue happening. It looks like they haven't merged properly. That can be on and off. So again, beta, things we're working on, but it's coming together there. So the last button we have, or third to last, that's what I get for jumping into these videos too quickly. The third to last is the group. Simply take a group of objects. Let's just grab these and hit the quick group, and it'll knock it down into a group that you can edit or rotate or move all as one. It's just a handy feature, saves you some time when grouping things. There's also the make a prefab button, the same as before, and the light mapping button, same as before. This makes sure that your UV2 channels are all updated just right before you get into it. Down below, we have some extra handy options that were just added. So I'm going to create a couple cubes once again, just to show how this can work. So let's say you have a fairly complex level. With lots of different items in it. And you happen to even have a lot of collision and triggers, occlusion, all sorts of things like that. So now you can select any number of items that you want to become collision and just hit C to make them into a purely collider item. If you select any items and hit T on the keyboard, they'll turn into triggers, which are useful, for volumes, anything like that, trigger volumes, etc. If you select an object and hit B, it'll become just a regular brush. So if I select this and hit B, it turns back to that. I'll make that back into a collider. And we now have a bit of a distinction between regular brushes and occluder brushes. So instead of making occlusion volumes and having to do a lot of extra work there, all you have to do is hit O, and it will turn it into an occluder brush. And you'll notice it hasn't changed at all, and that's because it's still a basic brush. So this, in a way, is pulling a little more from the Hammer engine that really is the inspiration for ProBuilder. And that's basically making this, if you remember, if you've used it, a world brush versus just a regular or a detail brush, they were called. So a world brush is going to occlude and be occluded, and a detail brush will only allow itself to be occluded. So detail brush would be anything that is going to be, just like it sounds, detail, or is fairly complex, like a stairway or a pillar, or a cylinder with lots of sides, anything like that, that you don't want to have a large overhead on the CPU when it's occluding other objects. You'd make those a regular brush, which in Hammer would be called a detail brush. So you can think of it that way. And we've labeled it over here, as you'll see in a second, D for detail. The occluder brushes are basically the world brushes, where this is anything large, static, something that should definitely block occlusion, that if the player if they look at it, they definitely won't be able to see anything on the other side. So you'd want to be fairly conservative with those, of course. Too much occlusion can be bad. You'll make too much overhead for the computer trying to figure out exactly what can be seen and what can't. So this is a good balance, I think, in that it's very easy to set up. Just select brushes or ProBuilder objects that are large and going to block view, and hit O to turn them into the occluder types, the world brushes, you might call them. So the last bit down here, kind of the part that I think is very exciting. Hopefully other people feel the same. Maybe it's a little more mundane to them, but you can now toggle on and off any types. So again, we can turn off those detail brushes just so you can't see them. This is really handy when you're working in the editor and you have a really complex scene. You just want to turn off all the detail real quick so that you can just work with your main large, the world brushes. And whenever I say brush, that might be confusing. Anybody who's used BSP instantly knows what I'm talking about, but everyone else is probably a bit confused. Brush is just an old term for the objects that you create in a BSP style editor. Basically, it's just these objects that you've created with ProBuilder. Any of them is a brush or a PBO, ProBuilder object. So anyway, you can turn off the occluder type or the world objects with that one. C obviously turns off collision, T for trigger, and then we have a no draw toggle, which is just the same as the no draw also in Hammer. So let's say I go into the texture editing mode, and I want some of these faces to not use up any texture map scale or anything in the light map, I mean, and also just never to be seen, but they should still block light. This is something that's really handy when you are building levels where there's usually going to be big areas that will never be seen, but still need to block light. So you can use the no draw. So just select any faces and hit N, and it instantly turns into no draw. You can also use the quick paint feature or the regular apply, all sorts of other ways to do this, but this is one of the easier ways. So let's say you've set up a whole bunch of those, and now you want to hide them all or show them. You can simply click on the toggle here and we'll hide and show them. And that works just fine even if you're toggling on and off the entire brushes themselves. So in this way, you can quickly build up a very complex scene, and it's something I've been doing, is building up some fairly complex items. And then once you realize, oh boy, I can't see through all this that I've built, you can just toggle on and off certain items, and it quickly becomes much easier to see exactly what you're doing. You know, once you toggle off the things that are in the way, you're left with only the items that you need to work with at the moment. So I really hope people like that feature especially, plus the extra shapes, the new GUI, the auto collapse groups should be really, really handy for optimizing your levels. So, well, we're going over 10 minutes. This isn't really as quick an intro as it should have been, but I hope everyone enjoys checking this out, seeing the new things that are coming. We are very close to releasing the full ProBuilder 2.0. A couple of the really hoped for features haven't quite made it, such as the continue UVs feature and one or two other ones, but we think as it is, it's just about ready to release. We want to make sure everyone is able to have this sooner rather than waiting forever to make it perfect. So make sure to drop a comment if you have any thoughts, any extra features you'd like. If you notice any bugs, here's one. Again, still beta, so have to expect these sort of things to still pop up. But you should see this coming into your inbox if you're a ProBuilder customer very soon. So thanks for watching, and as always, make sure and leave some comments and try to break this thing. We really appreciate the help on that. Thanks.